A beautiful model's husband is murdered. Just days later, the grieving widow poses for this photo, and the finger-pointing begins.
She's either an extremely unlucky young woman or something else is at work.
Then, another tragedy. The model's baby drowns, and this death is also surrounded by unanswered questions.
If I was absolutely convinced it was an accident, I believe the investigation would have been closed.
And there was more. A secret love nest, a murder-for-hire trial, a tearful mother searching for answers, and a prosecutor convinced the full story of Skeeter Lyerla has yet to be told.
I think she was up to her eyeballs in the whole thing.
Rene Gagnon was an all-American hero, one of 6 men who raised the flag on Iwo Jima. He fought for his country. Now his widow is fighting to keep their home.
They want to throw me out of my husband's dream house.
A home fit for a hero.
Hello, everyone. I'm Maureen O'Boyle. Welcome to A Current Affair. Usually, when a murder trial ends in a conviction, it closes the book on the crime. But there's one case in California where even though a killer was jailed, the questions just won't go away. Our Mike Watkis has the story.
She wanted to be a model. He wanted her to be a model wife and mother. Neither got what they wanted, and now Skeeter Lyerla is a murder victim. His daughter Kaisa a drowning victim. And his wife Cynthia is being forced to defend herself in civil actions from allegations that she was behind both deaths.
This is not somebody who acted like the traditional grieving widow, because I suspect that she's anything but.
Both before and during her marriage to Skeeter, Cynthia had an ongoing relationship with a real estate developer named John Litchfield. This Malibu area ranch was one of the couple's love nests. Skeeter knew about the relationship. He even found evidence that Cynthia and John sometimes passed themselves off as a married couple. Evidence like a receipt for a Corvette, where Cynthia used the last name of Litchfield. Most men might have walked out on such a relationship, but according to Skeeter's friends, he simply couldn't break away.
It was complete obsession like you've never ever seen. Just the most blatant things happening, like finding the receipt and knowing this stuff's going on. There's absolute, complete, on-paper proof, and yet he'd still say, nah, this isn't happening, or nah, she's not really doing this.
I think he really tried real hard to make his relationship with Cynthia work. He tried so hard. He was so stubborn. And now that was his downfall.
The end came just before Thanksgiving 2 years ago. Cynthia was then spending most of her time with Litchfield. Skeeter was finally thinking about divorce. On November 21st, he played golf and was to report to his job that afternoon. He never made it. 2 days later, in the middle of the night, his butchered body was found in his kitchen. Cynthia phoned several of her husband's friends with the news.
Cynthia explained that he had a really good golf game, and then she started to describe the knife wounds and how he was laying on the floor and things like that.
She went on to tell me how he looked on the floor dead. How, yeah, he had all these little stabby wounds around him, and there was blood everywhere, and I had to pull a towel over his head because I couldn't stand the look at him, and I had to clean up blood from everywhere. Which seemed odd to me because the detective said that she had said she wasn't in the house and she had not seen him.
The next morning, Cynthia was back at Litchfield's ranch preparing Thanksgiving dinner and Skeeter's funeral.
It was different from other funerals that I've been to, and then when they started to talk, they didn't talk about Skeeter. They just talked about forgiving the murder, and that it was very important that the Lord does forgive. The second the knife plunged into Skeeter, that the Lord forgive that person.
2 weeks later, police arrested Victor Perea, a landscaper who had lived and worked at Litchfield's ranch. He was charged with first-degree murder. Prosecutor Lynn Cutler claimed in court it was a murder for hire, with Cynthia Lyerla and John Litchfield as Victor's employers in the crime.
I think she was up to her eyeballs in the whole thing.
Neither Cynthia nor Litchfield has ever been charged in the crime.
I called her a bereaved widow, but I referred to them all along as Bambi and Loverboy, you know, because I thought the classic sugar daddy and then this bimbo is what we had working here. And I still believe that. I mean, and the guy who paid the piper was his innocent husband, who just happened to be an inconvenience and had to be moved out of the way, and Victor Perea became the muscle to get him out.
The prosecution and Perea's public defender slung more mud than a couple of political candidates during the course of Victor's trial. They both tried to demonstrate that Cynthia was something other than a loving wife. And one piece of evidence was this photograph taken within days of the murder.
It was there for no other reason than just to suggest to this jury that there may have been somebody other than Victor Perea who actually was involved in this, and it was this bimbo over here who was in a string bikini 2 days after her husband's been whacked out.
While the trial was still in progress, Cynthia and John were married in Las Vegas. Days later, Victor Perea, who never took the stand, was convicted of murder. And just 2 months later, Cynthia and Skeeter's daughter, Kaisa, was dead. Her drowning was investigated by the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department.
If I was absolutely convinced it was an accident, I believe the investigation would have been closed.
Kaisa was 15 months old and 29 inches tall at the time of her death. She drowned in just 13 inches of water in an ornamental pond at the home of Cynthia's father and stepmother. The child was last seen alive, napping in a bedroom.
For Kaisa to get from the bedroom to the pond, she would have had to walk out of the bedroom, down a short hallway, across the living room of the house, and then go out a door which leads to the backyard. That door has a sliding glass door, which, according to people who were in the house at the time, was open about 2 feet. And there was a screen door which was closed. The screen door would have had to have been pushed open by Kaisa, and then she would have gone outside and walked perhaps 25, 30 feet to the area of the pond, which was in the corner of the backyard.
It was a hell of a coincidence for this Cynthia Lyerla to have a husband who gets murdered and then to have the child die, the circumstances that she did. I mean, we couldn't make a case against her, but you know, she's either an extremely unlucky young woman or something else, as it were.
That's what Skeeter's mother, Marilyn Marks, believes as well. She's filed civil suits against Cynthia. One case, charging that Cynthia and Litchfield were responsible for Skeeter's murder, goes to trial in March. In another case, Mrs. Marks is trying to prove that Cynthia was also responsible for Kaisa's death. Cynthia would not talk to A Current Affair, but her attorney did.
Cynthia did not kill her husband or her child.
Marilyn Marks' son is buried in a Santa Barbara cemetery, and her grandchild is in an unmarked grave beside him. Rightly or wrongly, Mrs. Marks is convinced that Cynthia had a hand in both deaths, and she and Skeeter's friends want Cynthia to face a judge and jury.
The last 2 years has been the real tragedy, just letting it go on and on and on, and just knowing Skeeter and knowing Skeeter's mother, and I mean, the suffering she's doing is, you know, you can't describe it. Nobody knows. Nobody in this room has any idea what she's going through.
And she can't rest either. I don't think she can rest until this case is solved.
Once again, there are no criminal charges against Cynthia Lyerla or John Litchfield. The civil suit filed by Skeeter Lyerla's mother over little Kaisa's death was dismissed for technical reasons, but is being appealed. The other civil case, a negligence suit, is scheduled to go to trial in March. Now, we've got a lot more when we come back.